It's about I got to say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Sidelines. So I'm going to keep watching that.
There's Gibbs on first down. Jahmyr Gibbs across midfield. One man to beat. Inside the 20, the 10. Touchdown.
The 1-1. High fly ball, left center field. Deep. Quan back looking. Gone!
Final seconds. Jenkins looking. Jenkins puts it over the buzzer. It's good! A three-pointer at the buzzer.
This is BS Sports.
And away we go. Little, I guess we could call it season 4 intro and a new layout here. So, wanted to try something a little different. So, we're going to start with kind of putting based on the topic, and the headliner right now is Tiger baseball. We'll get to that in just a second. Tigers right now, they got a couple of men on, second and third, nobody out. But we got a nice Comerica Park backdrop for us today. Take a look here. News prediction: Tigers Angels battle of that's not nice. Not nice, but don't worry. I'll be very not nice in just a little bit. Pistons looking to extend Asar plus possible Kawhi Leonard. Red Wings look to re-sign Patrick Kane. Oh, gosh. Saw an article. The Red Wings are basically not planning on re-signing Perron, JVR, Talbot, Hamannek, and Gustafson, with Kane and Ed being the only... Are you serious? Like, I'm no fan of any of the guys that let him walk. But why are you trying to extend Patrick Kane, who's like a 1,000 years old? That's crazy. But we're not talking Red Wings. At least I don't have any plans on talking Red Wings. Also, this is also breaking news I just saw before I got on. Josh Jacobs, running back for the Green Bay Packers, is in jail. Apparently on 5 different charges, including domestic assault. So, not going good for Green Bay right now. Not going good. Especially if they lose their star running back. Their odds of divisional / postseason success are not going to be too high, I would imagine, as Zach McKinstry takes a ride on that one. It's going to be a sacrifice fly. 1-0 Tigers advances the base runners. Colt Keith will score. Anyway, I feel like it's so funny that right now I'm going to be doing are the Tigers the worst team in baseball as they're winning this game 1-0. Not that it matters, but well, you know what? Let's just get into it. Let's get into it. So, are the Tigers the worst team in ever? Are they just like the worst baseball team ever? Okay, obviously it's a little hyperbolic. They're not the worst team ever. However, I got some stats for you. Now, just to be clear, okay, I gathered these numbers after game 1 of the Orioles doubleheader on Sunday. Okay? Just so we're clear. In case some of these numbers have changed, obviously game 2, and then with this game, by the time this gets uploaded, they'll be different. Understood. The Tigers rank 22nd in batting average and OPS, 18th in on base, 24th in slugging, and 23rd in total home runs. By my math, that's below average in all major offensive categories. But wait, there's more. Let's check the pitching, shall we? Tigers rank 14th in ERA, 26th in saves, 17th in whip, and they also are 19th in total strikeouts and 12th in walks. That is, like, they give up a lot of walks, not like the lowest. You know what I mean? So basically, there's nothing this team is really good at. Like, maybe you want to say they're slightly above average in ERA pitching. They're, slightly below or above average in walks. They don't walk a whole lot. They don't give up a whole lot of runs, I guess. But don't worry. Things get much, much worse. So I went through to look at their hitting and their pitching. So they got 18 total players that are listed as hitters. And now some of these guys have only played a little bit. Some of these guys are hurt. But either way, 18 total players. Okay? 8 of those players are hitting at or below the Mendoza line. So that's a little under half of your roster hitting 200 or below. And then 12 out of those 18 players are hitting below 230. 230 roughly average batting average. So you got 12 out of your 18 players below average hitters, just pure hitter, just hit the ball, green grass, don't get an out. And then of those 18 players, just 2 of them have an OPS of 800 or higher. With an average OPS of about 710, 730, you might say, okay, well, that's above, like, it's hard to get guys with 800 OPSs. The Tigers have 13 players with an OPS below 710. Where is it? Hold on, there it is.
Not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob. Not great. But wait, there's more. The Tigers pitchers are bad too. Of the 18 players on the pitching staff, again, this is just total number. You just go on their roster page on MLB.com. Just the number of players. So this includes guys who are injured and whatnot and haven't pitched that much. Here's what it is. 8 of them have ERAs above 4. 10 of them have an ERA above 3.5. 9 guys, that's half of the guys, have a whip of 130 or lower, which means half of your pitching staff is below average because that's an average whip, 130. That's not amazing. For those of you who are not baseball stat nerds, you probably should know what whip is. Walks and hits per innings pitched. So that means that half of your team gives up 1 walk or hit every inning. That's not good. Every 3 outs, roughly, because that's an inning pitch, just 3 outs. And then finally, 10 of your 18 guys have a batting average against above 240, which, need I remind you, is about average. So 10 of your 18 guys, when batters see them, are above league average hitters. I ask again, is this the worst team ever? Like, here's the thing, because there's it's one thing if you're, I don't know, year 1 in a rebuild. You sold off your vets. You're seeing what you got in some of your young players. You would expect that, We are what now in year 4 of the Scott Harris plan, Scott Harris tenure, right? Because his second year he made the playoffs, then last year made the playoffs as well. So this is year 4, if my math is correct, unless I'm forgetting something. And the team is arguably worse than they were that first year, or at least at the same pace. So effectively, you haven't really made any progress. And this is, of course, coming off of the fact that you just had a disappointing collapse last year in the regular season where you dropped what should have been your division title and end up getting to the divisional series by, the skin of your teeth, and then blow that by not scoring more than 2 runs in 15 innings. Like, I'm trying to stay positive. I'm trying to see the silver lining, but I don't see a way out of this other than to start over and just realize that what we were doing was not actually going to sustain us. Zach McKinstry, Matt Vierling, Javi Baez, these were not guys who were going to help lead you to a World Series, which once again, and I feel like I have to remind myself and other people, that is kind of the goal, especially when it seems like we're talking about either the Tigers, more especially the Red Wings, but that's a different discussion. We have to remind people, the goal is to win a championship. The goal is to do that. And we are so far beyond that being close. You thought maybe last year they could have had a shot, especially when you thought, okay, They're not as bad as they were as they ended. They're probably not as good as they were as when they started, but you had it in the offseason. You bring in Framber Valdez to be your number 2. It's a solid acquisition. You bring in Justin Verlander. It's a nostalgia pick, and it's a good depth piece. You bring back Gleyber Torres, who was solid for you. You call up Kevin McGonigal. You feel like maybe you got something. You already had a decent enough nucleus. Riley Green's having an amazing season. But here we are. Spencer Torkelson stinks. Zach McKinstry stinks. Colt Keith can't find a home run. If Matt Vierling's terrible. Kerry Carpenter, when he was healthy, wasn't even very good. There's just nothing about this team. When you go through the roster, there's no player outside of maybe Riley Green, and that's being generous, where you look at it and you say, I want that guy up in a clutch spot. You just don't have it. And it doesn't help that AJ is insisting on playing this weird pinch hit, playing the analytics strategy. You know what I want, AJ? I want good player at the plate, hit the ball. I don't want to see Jahmai Jones because the pitcher is worse against righties. I don't want to see Colt Keith because the pitcher is worse against lefties. Maybe it works. Maybe there's been some success doing that. But it's agonizing because this is just, what are we doing? We're handicapping ourselves by bringing in these guys that are not major league players. Zach McKinstry was a fun story last year. Silver Slugger, All-Star. He's not an everyday player. If he's one of your best hitters, you're not winning the World Series. There's a reason the Dodgers didn't keep him. If he was so good, if he was so otherworldly, right? If he was going to help you, then the best organization in baseball, the Los Angeles Dodgers, wouldn't have let him go. It's so frustrating because for years and years and years on this show and before this show even existed, I have talked about the Tigers need bats. They need offense. They need to sign a bat, just somebody new to add to the lineup. And every year they have refused to do so. The biggest name offensively that Scott Harris has added is Gleyber Torres. And he currently is not playing baseball. He's hurt and might not be back in a very long time. And who's his next best option? Kevin McGonigal? Good draft pick for sure. Great development. No, I'm not fronting that, but you're not going to get very far by just being cheap in free agency, not going out and getting a good name or a bigger name, a bigger star bat, and just hoping that your guys develop. Like Max Clark might be a really good player for you in the future. He might. McGonigal is already a really good player for you. But we don't have time for that. We don't have time to wait for Max Clark. We don't have time to wait for Max Anderson or Briseño or Bryce Rayner. You have to imagine some of those guys are not going to hit. Red Wings fans should be very familiar with this, waiting on the kids strategy, because it just wastes a whole lot of time. So is there a way out? Sure. That would be in making competent and, savvy moves via trade, maybe calling up somebody to maybe put a spark of youth on this team as opposed to playing guys like Zach Short, or whoever they got out here. It's just pathetic. At least if you called up a Max Anderson or a Max Clark, at least you'd be interesting. At least you could say, okay, well, they're going to bring up some youth, bring some young energy onto this team. These are his guys, right? Max Clark was his first draft pick as a GM, as president of baseball ops. Okay. But instead, we're getting Gage Workman or Zach Short or Wenzel Perez. I don't get it. And AJ Hinch, look, he's been here for a very long time. I think since 2021. And he hasn't won jack squat. So I'm getting tired of his antics too. And the way that he calls his games, the way that his players have developed at the major league level, when you're here for 5 years and you haven't won the division, you haven't gotten past the divisional round, you've made the playoffs just twice. Some of that on roster construction, sure, he took over the Al Avila years. But again, we're 4 years into the Scott Harris administration, if you can call it that. And I'm left kind of unimpressed. The last couple of years were fun, but there's just nothing here. They're bad at everything. So I got nothing positive to say right now. Bring up the kids. That's all I got. The Angels now have taken a 2-1 lead with one out and a runner at second, so they could even extend it. And that's a line drive out. Almost double play. Tigers avoid that. Anyway, this is Kane probably for a league minimum, plus DeBrincat is going into his last year of his Really? DeBrincat's on the last year of his contract? Oh, man. That's crazy. I remember we traded for him. That's crazy. Honestly, I'd rather keep Kane over Rass and Comfer. I mean, that says a whole lot about Rasmussen and JT Comfer. Anyway. You know what bothers me with the Tigers? AJ said guys from Toledo won't help fix the problem, so keep running Short, Jones, Perez, while Max Anderson and Clark are over 300. I mean, I hear that. I will say, as far as that comment went, I wasn't offended because, I mean, what's he going to say? Like, oh, yeah, you totally need, yeah, you're right. We should just call up all these guys. Like, he doesn't want to just bury the guys that are on the roster. Now, look, I'm fine with burying the guys on the roster, but he's in no position to be able to do that. I don't love it because, look, it's a bad situation, but there's no good answers, I guess. That's my thought. 2024 Tigers have a miracle August-September run to eventually lose in Game 5 of the LDS. 2025 have an epic collapse to eventually lose in Game 5 of the LDS. That's right. Don't help when talking about the Tigers even though this is year 4 of Scott Harris, this team still is largely infected with Al Avila because majority of guys are Avila guys. That is true. Hold on. Tigers roster. Hold on. Let me pull up their roster here. So 40-man, well, let's just do active roster. So as far as whether guys are more or less Al Avila's guys, I'll just run down the list here. I mean, some of these I know are not Al Avila's guys because I remember when they got signed, so we'll just go with that. So Drew Anderson, that's a Harris guy. DeJesus, I'm probably a Harris guy. Finnegan for sure is a Harris guy. You traded for him last year and then brought him back. Flaherty's a Harris guy. Hannafy, I believe, is a Harris guy. Holton, I think that was Al Avila. Kenley Jansen, Harris. Melton, I don't know when he was brought in. I think he was at Harris. Mize was Al Avila. Montero, I believe, was also Al Avila. I could be wrong about that. Valdez is Harris. Vanasco, I don't know. Vest is Al Avila, I believe. Catchers, you got Dingler and Rogers. Those are both Avila guys. Keith, I think, was a Avila guy, although Scott Harris did extend him as soon as he got in. So I'm willing to transfer that over to Scott Harris. Howie Lee was a Harris guy. McGonigal was a Harris guy. McKinstry, Short, I mean, they brought him back. So that's kind of a Harris guy. Torkelson was Avila. Workman, I think that was Harris. Outfielders, Green was Avila. Perez, I believe, was Harris. Vierling was Harris, and Jahmai Jones was Harris. Honestly, most of these guys are Harris's guys. Just of the active roster. Some of the guys that are hurt, the Scoobles, the McGonagalls, the Scoobles, the Carpenters, those are both Alavila guys. But even still, those are some guys that are actually pretty good for it. I mean, Tara Scooble, his best player, is an Alavila guy. So McGonagle, technically a Harris guy, but Torres and Vierling are the only real Harris batters. Yeah, I mean, like, he drafted McGonagle, so he gets full credit for that. McGonagle looks like a stud, and certainly his development has worked out. But there's no guarantee that all these guys are going to be, turn out to be studs. McKinstry was a Harris guy. It was his first offseason. He brings in Zach McKinstry. As speaking of Kevin McGonagle, he just hit fly single into right field. Chris Ilitch teams are waiting on the youth, it seems, with GMs that don't make moves. Yeah, I mean, it certainly feels that way. I mean, if I don't want to say don't make moves, because the GMs have made moves, just that the moves that they've made have not corresponded to the jump forward, right? Like, I mean, the Tigers have a top 10 payroll this year. Like, I can't blame Chris Ilitch for putting out a top 10 payroll team. I can blame Scott Harris for paying the guys to be this way. Now, some of that is going to be Javi Baez. Some of that is going to be, I'm trying to think of some of the other guys that they've got signed, like Cole Keith, who's signed for some debt. Like, it's not like they went out this offseason and spent a bunch of money and got their way, but they had a bunch of money already being spent. But anyhow, Scott Harris and Steve Eisman both are in similar boats. Even AJ Hinch and Tom McClellan also. Yeah, I think there's something to say about that. The Tigers and the Wings are just very similar. The only difference is the one thing you could say is, hey, at least Scott Harris built two teams that made the postseason and made something of a run. Like, not to turn this into a Steve Eisman discussion, but Steve Eisman hadn't even come close to that, let alone actually done it. Like, we know that Scott Harris is not, he's at the very least struck lightning twice. If you want to say that, I think if you get lucky twice, it's not luck. There is some skill involved. But I mean, right now, all of the guys that he was looking to get production from, they stink. Wenzel Perez stinks. Matt Vierling stinks. Jahmai Jones stinks. Zach Short stinks. Spencer Torkelson stinks. Gage Barber stinks. Like, Zach McKinstry stinks. I could go down and on and on and on. Like, these guys suck. And they've sucked for a while now. Now, I thought Torkelson had turned it around last year. He had another 30 home run season. He changed up his stance. He had developed a little in the minor leagues. I thought maybe he'd switched it up, but no. He's right back to where he was before. And he's not getting paid. There's no way you're bringing his ass back. No freaking way. He's terrible. Tigers keep going down this route. They got to fire both Scott and AJ and completely clean house. Build around McGonagle and Clark and those prospects and trade guys to get more prospects. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with this sentiment because it just feels like it's more than just an AJ or just a Harris problem. I mean, if in part there is some aspect of the players. I mean, Zach McKinstry is not as bad as he is playing, but maybe like the guys are playing below average. That's on the guys. At the same time, you built the team around these guys. You built the team with Zach McKinstry in mind as your utility man, as one of your infield players. You built the team, with, a pitching with Kenley Jansen, who last year was not very good. And I wasn't stoked by his signing. I thought it was a fine signing, but he's got blown saves after blown saves to the point where you're like, okay, like, we brought this guy in to be a true closer. Haven't had a true closer in a while. Like, maybe since like Gregory Soto, if you could call him a true closer. And he's terrible. Like he's unreliable. He can't close out games. The thing that he is here to do, he doesn't do. He's got the most blown saves, I believe, in baseball. And right now, you're down 2-1 to like the worst, the only team that's worse than you, seemingly in the American League, in the Los Angeles Angels. And you're at home in front of your hometown crowd after a day of rest. Like, what am I to say? I hate to say it, but this rebuild honestly looks to be a fluke, and 2024 was a fever dream. Hard to argue. I mean, hard to argue as it stands right now. And look, I didn't mention any of the injuries, at least not in depth. Of course, your injuries are playing a major part in this. It's not incidental. It's not nothing. I mean, again, your infielders right now are Colt Keith, Hao-Yu Lee, Kevin McGonigal, Zach McKinstry, Zach Short, Spencer Torkelson, and Gage Workman. 4 out of those 7 guys are basically unplayable. Zach Short is unplayable. Spencer Torkelson basically is unplayable. Gage Workman is basically unplayable. Zach McKinstry is also basically unplayable. Like 4 out of those guys are just unplayable. And Hao-Yu Lee, he could end up being a decent player, but he's young. He got called up, probably, you'd say maybe a little too early. Like he's got in his last 7 games, he's got 4 hits or yeah, if that means anything to you. But yeah, like it's not great. So yes, of course, he's 23, so, he's got time. But he was called up, thought maybe that would have been a sign that, like, okay, they're calling up some guys that we've actually heard of, that we actually care about. And, that it obviously has not resulted in anything spectacular, as there's a fly ball into deep left field that will go for a home run. And it is now 3-1 Angels. I don't know what to do, guys.
Yeah, just pain. It was pain everywhere.
Just pain everywhere. I think the Montero magic might be starting to wear off, guys. I mean, he's getting lit up here by the Angels, who are terrible. Joe Adell just hits a bomb. Well, I don't exactly have a Pistons talk segment, but we will. We can transition to a different topic, which is not Pistons related, but hold on. I'm going to do something really, really fancy for you. Check this out. Bam. Look at that. Look at that. Asar Thompson getting talked about for an extension. That's true. I did see that. So, okay. You know what? Before we get into the segment that I actually had laid out, I do kind of want to talk about this because on my way home from work, there's the conversation right now is all about you got to trade Asar Thompson if you want to get a big name. And I think this is a short-sighted idea. Asar Thompson was arguably the best defender in the postseason, and it wasn't even all that close. The guy was an all-defensive player. Now, look, offensively, yes, he's terrible. He can't shoot. I'm no defender of Asar Thompson's offensive game. When you have him and Jalen Duren on the floor, your offense is putrid. You can't have both of them on the floor at the same time. I think one of them has to go. And if you're asking me who I want to go, I'd rather Jalen Duren go. Because you already know you can get production out of Paul Reed. You can get production out of Isaiah Stewart. Both those guys, at least theoretically, can hit some jumpers. Jalen Duren can't do that. And we saw how he looked in 2 7-game series in the postseason. He did not show up largely. He had a couple of games where he played well, but he did not show up for the most part. So right now the Pistons are looking at extending Asar Thompson. I would support that. However, you're going to have to move on from Duren. You can't have 2 scoreless wonders on your basketball team. You can't do it. You're not going to survive because you have 2 guys who are just offensively putrid. Like, who are you going to take out of your line? Like, is your Is your, offseason addition going to replace, I guess you could say you could replace Duncan Robinson, but you still got the same problem. 2 out of your 5 guys can't score. You got to have, you can't have that. When they're both on the floor, heaven forbid when they're on the floor and Karis LeVert is on the floor, can't score. Well, the rumors I keep hearing right now is the Pistons are actually serious in a possible trade for Kawhi Leonard as the Clippers want to move on. Okay. I think I made my thoughts on Kawhi Leonard clear last week, but I'll just talk about it right now. I would not want Kawhi Leonard. Not because he's a bad player, even because he's a bad person. I don't think he's a bad person. He's hurt all the time. And he would be a fine player if healthy. He would certainly make you better. But for a rental, for a guy who you're probably only going to get a year out of, I don't know, man. I wouldn't be high on it. My guy, if I had to pick, is Trey Murphy because it just makes too much sense. New Orleans. Trajan Langdon came from New Orleans. Who's in New Orleans right now? It's Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver. So guys who are familiar with the Pistons organization, it'd be, frankly, and we know how Troy Weaver trades, it'd be pretty easy to sell them, and we know how Joe Dumars trades as well. It'd be pretty easy to sell them some of your guys and kind of, boast it up. Like, I think of a guy like Marcus Sasser, drafted by Troy Weaver. He's obviously got some affection, if you want to call that for him. You got a Marcus Sasser. You got a Ron Holland. Those are 2 young, controllable. I think Sasser has a couple more years, if not a year, because I think that was the Thompson. Actually, Sasser might not have another year. I could be wrong about that. Maybe he does. I don't know. But Ron Holland, young, controllable. He's shown some ability to be able to shoot. Had a little bit of postseason experience, but didn't quite make that roster. Again, young player, very athletic, pretty good on defense. Like he's a little bit of like an Asar Thompson if he could shoot potentially. And then you also already have guys like Karis LeVert. Maybe even think about throwing in a Duncan, or not, maybe not Duncan Robinson. You know what? You can throw some picks in there and make it happen. I don't think it's going to take anything crazy to go get Trey Murphy. I don't think it's going to take trading Asar Thompson to New Orleans. If you do that, here's the thing. How much better do you really get if you do that? Because then you lose the best defender on your team, one of the top 3 defenders in the NBA, and you get a little bit better on shooting. Trey Murphy's a good player, but he's not, he's not Pascal Siakam. He's not some superstar. He's not Jaylen Brown. He's not a complete total stud. How much better do you really get? You lose out on defense. You still have the black hole of scoring that is Jalen Duren. I don't see that as an improvement. I would see maybe you even throw in Jalen Duren into that trade. Send him to New Orleans because we know for sure that Troy Weaver, I was blanking on the guy's name. We know for sure that he has an affection for him. He drafted him. So I just think it makes too much sense. And the Kawhi stuff, the Kyrie Irving stuff, no. I have no interest in guys that are, at this point in their career, has-beens, no longer reliable options. I mean, in Kyrie's case, he's a head case. He's a locker room cancer. He's an organization cancer. There's a reason he's been on so many teams in so many years. It's because guys can't stand him, basically. Second one, I don't know if it's light or Wolverine BS, but the Pistons are looking to move up, drafting Yaxel. I mean, it's interesting, but Yaxel's an unproven commodity. Never played in the NBA. He's older, so he's I don't want to say he's a veteran, but he's 24 years old, right? Something like that. Like he's not going to be coming out of college as like a 19-year-old who you need to really develop. I wouldn't mind the move. Certainly, I'd be open to it. A national champion and all that. Like he's obviously got pedigree, so wouldn't be mad at it. Wouldn't say no to Kawhi, but all these mocks has us give up the 21st plus 2 other 3 first-round picks for Kawhi Leonard. No, not for a rental. I might give up this year's first round pick for Kawhi Leonard. I might do that. I'm not giving up 3 first round picks unless I can guarantee 2 years of this guy, 2 or 3 years, frankly. But I can't do that. Not with Kawhi Leonard, not with the health situation that he's had. He had a fantastic year this year, but that might be his last hurrah. And that's probably what the Clippers are thinking. Also, 2 to 3 players, more mocks are like Ron, Sasser, LeVert, 21 and 2 first round. That would be, for Kawhi Leonard, no. I would do that in a heartbeat, though, for Trey Murphy. I send Ron Holland, Sasser, and LeVert to New Orleans. I don't care, and I don't even care about those picks. That would be perfect for Trey Murphy. This package for Trey Murphy would be perfect. It would be a Langdon specialty, but not for Kyrie certainly, and not for Kawhi Leonard either. I'm just not interested in bringing in Kyrie Irving or Kawhi Leonard overall. If gun to my head, I had to choose one of them, I'd take Kawhi, because at least Kawhi isn't gonna ruin my locker room. He might just not play, but Kyrie, I'm averse to that completely. Now, on to the actual meat of the segment that I wanted to talk basketball about. So typically, I obviously don't really cover most other teams. I don't typically cover the Western Conference Final. Unless the Pistons are totally out of it, I don't typically cover the NBA playoffs in such an intense way. But the Western Conference Finals this season was marked as one of the greats. San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Victor, Shai, MVP versus number 1 overall pick. Coulda, shoulda been MVP, Victor Wembanyama. All year, the Chet Holmgren and Victor rivalry. All year, these two teams have been battling each other. It's a battle for the West. And nobody is talking about the actual content of the games, or rather, the content that they are talking about of the games is the fact that this series has epitomized everything that people hate about the modern NBA. Let me explain. The reigning MVF, the most valuable flopper, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is putting on an Oscar-worthy performance. Truly something worthy of the Academy Awards. There is a report out of Yahoo Sports. Shout out Tom Haberstroh. I think that's how it's pronounced. This is an amazing report. Let me just read you these numbers that he came up with. Question: how often does SGA fall on non-fouled shots? And then there's some comparisons. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander fell 20 times on 187 shot attempts. That's a fall rate of 10.7% on non-fouls. So 1 in 10 shots, he is falling to the ground when there's no whistle. Now, for reference, James Harden, 19 falls on 219 shots. That's a fall rate of 8.7%. As a Pistons fan, I'm very familiar with James Harden's tendency to kick out his legs and induce a foul like that. So the fact that Shai is doing it even more is crazy. Here's another flopper, Jalen Brunson. 19 falls on 240 shots, but he's at 7.9%. Donovan Mitchell, 26 falls on 314 shots, 7.6%. And then Victor Wembanyama, 1 on 164 shots, 0.6%. That's all on non-fouled shots. Okay? Calls where there's no whistle. Let's see what happens when there is a whistle. 19 falls on 37 shot attempts. That is 1 less fall than he had. Now, obviously, less shot attempts because there's less foul. But a foul percentage rate of 51.4%. He's falling. When he gets a foul, half the time he's on the floor. James Harden, for reference, 29%. Victor Wembanyama, 25%. Less than half of Shai of that rate by percentage point. Jalen Brunson, 19.2. Donovan Mitchell, 17.9. And when you add it all up for everybody, how often is SGA on the floor. 17.4%. 17.4%. That's about 1 in every 5 times he's fallen to the ground. For reference, James Harden, 11%. 11.9% to be exact. So just about 1 in 10. Brunson, 9%. Mitchell, 8.4%. Victor, 4.2%. This is a major problem. Like, this isn't just like, oh, this little quirk of this player. He's kind of weird. He's kind of funky, but, whatever. It's just the modern game. No. The fact that people are looking at the most valuable player, arguably the best player in basketball right now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and they only see this guy flopping around like a fish out of water. It's awful. And to make matters worse, if every other time he goes to the basket, if every 5 times he goes to take a shot, he's falling to the floor and either drawing a whistle or what have you, like every time that happens, stoppage of the clock, going to the free throw line, 2 shots, basically 2 points because it's SGA and he's really freaking good. And the problem is not just the flopping. It's that in this kind of game, this encourages when you don't blow a whistle, when you do blow a whistle and reward this becomes a strategy. You think he doesn't? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander isn't a stupid person. At least I don't think he's a stupid person. He's Canadian, but he can't help that. Disrespectful, but it deserved. This is harming the NBA. Like, let me just try to draw something out for you. If every penalty in the NHL, if there was a player, if Nathan McKinnon, arguably the best player in hockey right now, if Nathan McKinnon or Connor McDavid or Cal McCarr or whoever, pick best hockey player, if on 50% of the penalties they were falling to the ground, they were flipping out, they were just like all over, people would be making fun of it. They'd be calling it soft. They would be tuning out because it's ridiculous. Now, look, I am not one of these guys who says that everything back in my day was great. That in the 2000s, when I was a kid watching the Pistons, going to work, Kobe Bryant, early days of LeBron James, Shaquille. I'm not one of these guys who says that because I was a little kid. I don't really remember that much, to be perfectly frank with you. Okay? But they just simply did not do this. They simply didn't. Okay? Like, I'm sorry to all the, youngsters, all the people who want to say like, oh, it's just the old head. 2000s suck. 90s actually suck. We're living in the best era of basketball ever. The most talented. Like, dude, go back and watch. And I'm not saying watch highlights because you watch highlights, you're not going to get that. Just watch full games. Kobe Bryant, LeBron James back in the day, Dwayne Wade, Dirk Nowitzki, Shaquille O'Neal, and Michael Jordan, of course. They were not doing this. They just weren't. Like think of the iconic moments of these guys. Think of any moment. Like it wasn't happening. It's certainly not to the extent that it is now. Like 1 in 5, you're on the floor. 1 in 5 shots. Think of, just as a Tiger fan, just as a Pistons fan, Chauncey Billups wasn't doing this. Rip Hamilton wasn't doing this. Isaiah Thomas wasn't doing this. And you know what's ironic? Is those guys played in a far more physical era. An era where you were allowed to get away with a lot more physical contact than you are today. So, am I to understand that the rules in place eliminated the physical contact, eliminated the kinds of defense that going to work and bad boys, that has been weeded out, right? And I am to understand that basically players are, assuming they don't just outright admit that they are in fact flopping, players are to have us believe that, no, actually, we're getting nailed every possession. We're, like James Harden jetting his head back Every single time he drives to the basket. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander feet like spaghetti noodles every time he goes into the air. It's ridiculous. It's unwatchable. It's so awful. I don't know what other adjectives I can use to describe it, because it's just not good basketball. That's the most insulting. I love basketball. I love college basketball. I love pro basketball. I've loved basketball since I was a little kid. I love it. It's one of my favorite sports to watch highlights. It's one of my favorite sports to just watch in general. I love it. Okay, I'm not some anti-basketball guy. But come on. This is ridiculous. This is barely it is 50% hoops, 50% nonsense. Again, I want to extrapolate this to all other sports. Could you imagine if every single time there's some physical contact on a passing play in football and the receiver goes and just falls to the ground and draws a pass interference? It would be unwatchable. It would be so infuriating. So, again, this is what's happening in the NBA. Adam Silver, owners, and also players, stop. You're ruining your product. You're making us not like you. You are making, I want to be able to like the players that are good. I want to be able to like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I want to be able to like the Oklahoma City Thunder. They've never been good. Actually, not most of my life. They've been pretty good, but they hadn't won anything until last year, right? I want to be able to like this team, but I can't like them because the way they play is infuriating. And look, if a Thunder fan wants to say, well, who cares? We're winning. I understand. If it was the Pistons, I wouldn't be, singing this tune, probably. Understandably so. But understand that the NBA is made up of more than just Oklahoma City Thunder fans. And furthermore, it's not even just that they are doing this and they're successful. They don't have to do this. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of the all-time great shot makers. The guy is a walking bucket. Chet is elite. He's a good shooter. He can play great defense. Jay Will obviously hadn't played because he's been hurt. He's also a great second option. They don't have to play like this, but they are. It doesn't make any sense to me. So NBA, they have to fix this. They just have to. If there's nothing after in this offseason, because obviously they're not going to fix it right now. But once the season is over, whenever a crown is champion, whether it's whoever is crowned a champion, that's the words I'm trying to say. Whether it's New York, who just closed out the Eastern Conference, or San Antonio, or Oklahoma City, whoever it's going to be, I want the first news report after, all the awards and everything have been arranged. I want the first news report to be Adam Silver is preparing to propose rule changes regarding flopping and enforcing them vigorously. I want guys teched for this. And you might say, oh, that's extreme. Why? It's making the product unwatchable. It's making the NBA a joke. If you tech them, if you threaten them getting kicked out of the game, well, what do you know? They're going to regain their balance. As soon as they realize they can lose out on checks, on money, so then they'll figure out how to regain their balance whenever they jump. So you got to figure it out. You just have to. I can't. It cannot be defended unless you're just a total sycophant for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It can't be defended. Good to see you in the chat, Mr. X. NBA needs to put a stop to this and actually follow through with it. That's true, because flopping is supposed to be a foul, but nobody calls it. This is one of those things where I understand it's probably hard to enforce, but you have to just use a wide net. I mean, like if you see a guy jet his head back, like call the whistle. And look, this might slow down the game for a little bit. Short term, it might hurt you, but call the whistle and look at it and say, is that a natural head movement, or is he going when somebody goes like this? You know, and then tech him and then give the ball to the other team. And guess what? He's not going to do it anymore. Because these guys are not stupid. Like, they're doing it because it works. Okay, the NBA is like the free market on steroids. Whatever they're doing because it sells, i.e. because it helps them win. So, yeah. Not much for the NBA, or so much for the NBA cracking down on flopping. Yeah, we already got to that. They crack down on flopping unless you are a star or a big name guy, basically. Notice nearly the star players in the NBA are also the biggest floppers in the NBA, which again, this harms the product. Like if your best players, the guys that are supposed to put butts in seats, if your best players are doing this, that's pathetic. That's terrible. Again, imagine hockey, best forwards, best defensemen, whatever. Every time there's a power play, every time they get hooked, they're on the floor. They're on they're feet up. Terrible. It would be terrible. Not only is flopping, it's also basically automatic point making. That entire Cleveland series, you probably saw me say more than once that every foul is a shooting foul because that's what it seems like. Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, like there were times not just in that series, but in the previous series, in the Magic series, where it's like, wait, that's a shooting foul? I mean, the guy just chucked the ball in the air. There was no way that shot was ever going in, regardless of whether we touched him. And he obviously is doing it to draw the shooting foul. 2004 final scores, 83-78. 2026 final score, 116-109. I'm not saying that we got to go back to, the dead ball era or anything like that. But you can't, this is awful. This is terrible to watch. People aren't going to want to watch, just teams just not play defense. I know that the ratings are supposed to be really high. I know that, it's the most popular it's ever been. But how much of that is TVs being on, but people not really watching versus, TVs being on and people being invested, people loving it, people wanting more of it. It seems to me that most of the time, whenever I'm in NBA discourse, there's people watching it and complaining about something, whether it's the officiating or whether it's the flopping, which is, coincides with the officiating. The product gets a lot of views. It's popular, but it's not popular in that it's got a lot of goodwill. Yeah. Meanwhile, Kevin McGonigal, look at that. A base hit. That should clear the bases, actually. Maybe the Tigers have tied it up. Yes, I think they have. McGonigal with a 2 RBI triple, tying it up in the bottom of the 5th with nobody out. Maybe the Tigers have gotten hot, guys. Maybe my yelling at them earlier got them riled up. NBA should be putting the energy they are using trying to amend the draft to stop tanking to turn to a limit. Yeah, exactly. This is absolutely, I agree with you 100%, Mr. X. The whole stopping of tanking thing and the draft, you just get rid of the draft lottery. I'm done with it. I've made this point several times. All the people who say, "Oh, you only do that because you're a Pistons fan." Pistons haven't been in the NBA lottery for 2 years. I still say the same thing. Okay, it's stupid. The reason you have these teams tanking is because they suck, because they're terribly run. So whatever, give them a number 1 overall pick. They're still going to suck because they're terribly run. The Jazz are an awful organization. They have never been a winning organization. Certainly not since the 90s. Anyway, just get rid of it. Here's your solution. Get rid of it. If you tank, whatever. It's on you. You're tanking your franchise value. I don't care. What do I care if one team decides they don't want to play basketball? Most of the time they do that anyway. Do you really think that the Wizards are like trying to tank? They're just terrible. Yeah, right, exactly. Stop the tanking. As soon as San Antonio got out of the lottery, they're like, "Hey, what are we doing? What are you guys doing with all this tanking?" It's like, what do you mean? They literally got Victor Wembanyama because they tanked, and he is now in the Western Conference Finals. And like, even to just go beyond that, like the Pistons were terrible, and they got screwed. Like, they weren't tanking. They just got screwed by this stupid lottery. It's an argument of tanking versus rigging. But, like, the thing is like, I think that I don't think that tanking is actually like I don't know that it's even necessarily a problem. Like, if that makes sense. I know that sounds like, oh my gosh, what do you mean? Don't you want every team to try? Well, practically speaking, one team is going to be better. Like there's only going to be so many postseason teams, right? And just make it simple. Like, you don't need all of these crazy, absurd lotteries to stop teams from teams are just going to be good or they're going to be bad, and they're either going to sell at the trade deadline or they're going to buy at the trade deadline, or they're either going to have a big offseason and make a lot of moves, or they're going to sell in the offseason and make a lot of bad moves. Like, it doesn't benefit anybody. It doesn't actually stop tanking. It only just makes us think that the league is rigged. Like, I agree. Remove the lottery. A team with like 11 to 13th place talent would have to really tank from the start of the season to get the number one pick without a lottery. Exactly. I mean, last year or a couple of years ago, the Hawks, they were a play-in team and they won the lottery. That's ridiculous. Okay, like, they don't deserve a number one overall pick just because they didn't tank? Like, because they weren't bad. Here's the number one overall pick. Huh? Don't we want parity? Don't we want teams to like get better? Like, there's a reason the NFL doesn't have a lottery. And it's not just because they play less games. It's because it's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's just for TV ratings. Like, the only time a lottery might make sense, if it does anyway, like, maybe you could say it makes sense in baseball because they play so many games and there's so many draft picks anyway. So, but even then, it's just stupid. It's just stupid. They got Victor, Harper, and Castle all from tanking. 2 of those 3 drafts, we were worse than them, and they got ahead of us. Absolutely. 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 With the lottery, they don't have to fall that far to have a chance at the number one overall pick. Exactly. I mean, we just saw it with last year with the Mavericks. The Mavericks sell Luka Doncic, their best player. And what do they get? They get Cooper Flag, they get a restart. They weren't tanking. They were buying. They brought Anthony Davis in. They were going all in. It was a terrible idea, but they weren't tanking. Like, that's more upsetting to me than, if the Jazz decide to be really crappy and get a good player. Whatever. Like that player is either going to transform them to be a really good organization or it's not. Like, this whole conversation, I'm so glad that you guys are in agreement with me. But like, this whole conversation to me is so confusing because people are just like, it's like the reflexive instinct is like, tanking bad, lottery good. It's like, no, neither of these things are like, it's the opposite though. Like tanking is just what you like. The reality is some teams are just going to be worse. And when you sell off at the trade deadline, when you don't make big moves in the offseason, when you don't add on to your roster, you are going to suck. And that means you are going to get better draft picks. So what are we doing with this stupid lottery? Like, all it does is screw teams who actually suck and reward teams who do tank to get slightly better odds and have an actual chance at a pick they don't even deserve. Like, I'm sorry, the Spurs did not deserve to have Victor Wembanyama that year. The Pistons did. They were worse. Like, the year the Hawks got the lottery, the Pistons had the worst record in franchise history and were picking 5th. How does that didn't help us? We weren't tanking. We just sucked. Like, I could go on and on about this. This is like the most passionate I have been talking about NBA draft since in a few years. It's one of my biggest pet issues. Notice after getting back-to-back drafts where teams nowhere near the top 5 won the lottery. So true. Worst team won the lottery. Besides this new system, if it works correctly, the bottom 3 teams would genuinely be the worst 3 teams in that season. Yeah, it's like, oh, we'll just make it so that the best odds are to the worst teams. It's like you're only moving. The issue is not the odds, or the issue is not like by adding the odds factor, like teams are going to be bad. And so they're either going to be quote unquote tanking for absolute better draft position or draft odds, like position, like based on, like successful lottery selection odds. Like they're going to be losing one way or the other. And so I just say, well, let's just get rid of the middleman and just give them exactly what they deserve. Like if they're a terrible team, if they're, 14 and hold on, how many will that be? 14 and 68? Give them the number 1 overall pick. They're terrible. Like the worst that could happen is they, ruin a prospect. That's just sports, brother. That's just how it goes. Like good organizations do well no matter where they pick in the draft. Bad organizations do bad no matter where they pick in the draft. So just stop the nonsense. But they're not going to do that. You want to know why? Because it's a TV show. I will live and die by that belief. Jahmai Jones hits a base hit, and the Tigers have taken the lead, guys. The Tigers are up 5-4 with nobody out and the bases loaded. Jahmai Jones delivering a 3-run inning for the Tigers. Somebody is letting the Tigers get hot right now. They're looking for win number 2 in a row. Watch out, fellas. Watch out. Now you'd be punishing the worst teams by giving the next 3 worst teams a better chance of the number 1 pick. What is exactly right? Like, hold on. Let me just. This is perfect.
I'm so sick of these people. Oh!
This is me, right? Like I am Stephen A. Smith right now. Stephen A. Smith is me. Is that a grand slam? Or is that a foul ball? I think it's a foul ball. Okay, it's a foul ball. I thought Torkel said it a grand slam. Never mind. Hawks also fell to number 1 back in 2024. Also, when they weren't anywhere near the top 5. Pistons can win 17 games or worse, 14 games and pick 5. Exactly. When we took Ivy 5, it wasn't that big of a deal. Asar was the infamous Victor year. Heck, 24. Pistons won 14 games and we picked 5 again and nobody cared at all. Exactly. Like we had 3 years in a row where we dropped to 5th. That is absurd. Like I'm sorry. That's just stupid. Pistons didn't have first last year. That's probably where the draft rage went. Yeah, I mean, not that there would have been any concern for that in my book. I wasn't interested in what we were going to do in the draft, so. I know he's only had 2 drafts and 1 first-round pick so far as GM, but we missed both on the 24 picks. Ron is okay to Matt, and Bobby Clinton got cut while pick 38 is doing great in OKC. Chaz Lanier, I don't know what to say. He plays great in the G League, but can't get minutes on the Pistons. Yeah, I mean, 2 drafts in, nothing special. Ron Holland has turned into a did not play coach's decision in the playoffs and a potential trade piece. So maybe in the sense of you could use him as a trade piece, it's successful. But yeah, as far as actual players go, we have no evidence that Trajan Langdon can draft good players late or early in the draft. And that's concerning, but maybe you can make it work in other ways. So, but all right, that's pretty much all I got. AJ Mitchell. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Another great factoid there for me. But all right, that's where we're going to wrap the show. So we'll be back next week. I think by then the finals will have begun, or at least will have been set. I think they might actually. I don't know. Either way. Maybe the Tigers will get hot, and then we can have a fun show. That would be nice. I miss having fun shows about the Tigers. Those were good times. So, with that all being said, thank you all for watching. Hit the like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all next Tuesday. Have a good night, everybody. See you later. Goodbye. See ya.